Hello, my crafty friends. It's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I'm here today to show you what I did with these foam trees. These are 3 inches tall by 2 inches at the bottom, and I'm going to show you how I did these 4 adorable ornaments. So I got these styrofoam tree forms through Temu, and they were pretty beat up. They were squished on sides, they were just indented. So I had to kind of try to think outside the box here on how I could cover up these imperfect foam trees. Now, they're foam trees. They're going to have some imperfections, but every single tree on the bottom just had the same indentation, so they were just not quite, you get what you pay for, so it's okay. So the first thing I did is I painted that one in a metallic gold, and I set it aside so it can dry. And now I'm just taking my twine here, and I'm going to go ahead and hot glue it, pulling it tight all the way around. You see right there? That is actually the bottom that should go out all the way to the edge, but every one of those are indented. So I just went ahead and used the hot glue and the twine, and I just went right over it like it was sticking out like it should be, and it built up as I went along. So when you're putting twine around these, when you start, you really want to just put that hot glue around every spot. You want it to grip and start to hold that shape for you, so you have a solid bottom that as you pull it tight, you can pull it up and against the previous row of twine that you've glued down. So once I got all that twine glued all the way around, I took these old foam brushes that I've been saving, and I cut ends off of them to make the trunks of the trees so that I would have something to stand up. You see down there at the bottom I have some wood rounds, and I actually put them up on the wood rounds to create these trees. It was a lot easier to cut through these foam brush handles than it was to cut through my craft sticks the other day, I tell you what. So what I did here is I went ahead and I took that brown sprinkle, and I'm going to put just a dab in there. See, there's not much. And then I'm going to add some water to that, and I'm going to make it like a little wash. Now, I just put a little bit in there, and it's going to create more of a paint wash than just a paint. I'm going to use this to actually go over the end of those foam paint brushes and also the wood rounds that I'm going to actually place the trees on. So this doesn't take very long at all. It's very watered down, and so it just goes right on over those wood slices very easy. Now these are dry, so it does absorb that water, and they don't take long to dry because it just sucks up that paint and water mixture really easy. So you can just see it just glides right on there with no problem. And then I can just move on ahead and grab those paint sticks, well, those paintbrush ends, there we go, and just put it right on over the tops of those as well. Once again, the wood is dry, so that moisture just gets absorbed up in there, and it just dries really quick on these. Now I do flip it over and do the other side because I want these to look finished on my trees, my ornaments, because you're going to be able to see the bottoms, but you're also going to be able to see the tops that the trees are standing on. So I want to make sure that it's finished all the way around. Now while those take a moment to dry, I'm going to pull out this baker's twine here that is white with the gold wrapped around it, and I'm going to show you how much easier it is to start from the top and wrap these cones. I'm going to use that on that gold one that I painted. We have the gold accents in there. I'm going to push it on down, and you see I just wrapped it right across the top of that tree and a little bit down the other side. Now because I started at the top, it's going to automatically want to push to the smaller side. So I'm not fighting against the tapered cone by trying to keep the twine down towards the bottom and hold it in place. Because I'm wrapping it around the small end first, it is going to stay tight against that top twine as I wrap it, that baker's twine. And as I move on down, all I have to do is just glue a little bit at a time because I'm not fighting that gravity of the of the cone itself. It just works out so much easier. It also gives you a cleaner wrap, and you'll be able to see that on the cones as well once we get some of these done. You can see here how much easier it is just to grab that, and as I wrap, I'm pulling towards the smaller side. There is no resistance trying to fight it, because if you put it on the wider side, it's going to automatically want to slide to the shorter side. So I didn't have to do that with this because I started at the smaller side. It automatically grabbed and just wanted to fill up the larger portion. And it made it a lot easier. And I think it took me twice as long to do the regular twine one than it did to do this one. So now I'm just going to show you the difference between this one and the other ones. The other ones are a little rougher, and that's fine. You know, they are made out of twine and not that baker's twine. Now I've got some embellishments that I just pulled out, and I'm going to start with the gold and white that I just finished. I'm cutting a little 10-inch strip, and that's going to be the top to my ornament. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside and have that ready to go. Now this is one of those little pieces that the back actually splits open up, and I'm going to open that back and use it to hang on to and paint this gold because my tree has more gold in it than it does silver. So I wanted just to hit it and have some highlights of gold on there before I get started any longer with this one. I'm just going to take my finger and wipe off the tips of those little mirrors so that they are clean. I got this ribbon here that has these little tiny Christmas lights on them, and I got that from Temu, and it was supposed to be like 36 inches and it was more like 16. So, you know, when you get things on sale through them, that's usually the only time I buy them, and I usually wait till they're giving away free gifts. And so you just have to be careful, and you know, I don't have too many issues, but these foam trees were a little rough, and you know, this little trim was kind of short than what I expected. But I just wrapped it around and glued the piece of the tops of those lights to the tree itself now. So you've got this white tree with gold specks and now gold cording with little tiny Christmas lights on them. I think it turned out really cute when you look at that. I'm just going to take that little last piece, because if I continued wrapping it, it would have been right under that other red one and just right on top of each other. And so I just cut it off, moved it over, and glued it down. So now I'm going to use my little Cricut tool here, and I'm going to poke a hole right in the top, and I'm going to take my hanger and I'm going to bend those little pieces down over that hanger and stick it right on down into my tree with some hot glue. Now this one was fun, but it was messy. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of this leftover fabric that I've had, and I cut out a 4x4 square. And when I did that, I went ahead and I folded it in half by corner to corner, and I cut it right down that center, and I made a triangle that looks like a shawl. Now I have some fuzzy fur. Yes, it's going to be a gnome. And I tried to separate this out a little bit because I did get that on Temu as well, and it wasn't the best quality. So I tried to separate it a little bit, and it was just a little rough. And so I am now just kind of cutting a little U shape back there so that I can have a little shape for my beard. And I'm going to add some hot glue, and I'm just going to now lay it and pull it up so that my smaller part is on the bottom and the wider part is on the top, so that my beard will have a natural pull down. And now I've got these little tiny beads, these little wood beads. I didn't add any color to these. This is very much a very neutral gnome. And I'm just going to add some hot glue to the middle of that beard, and I'm going to lay that bead right on down there. It didn't have any holes in it, so it worked out quite well. I took a little piece of leftover fur, folded it, and laid it right on top for that nose, to go right on over that nose. And that is now my mustache. I feel like here I was a cat just grooming my kitten or something, because it was a constant pull that fur down, pull the fur down, 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 straighten it out, smooth it out. Does it look right? And it turned out really cute. I did have to do some trimming, but all in all, I don't have much to complain. It did turn out really cute, and the beard was long enough, and it had that little point to the end, so it was perfect. So that little scarf piece that I did, I'm just going to take some hot glue, and I'm going to glue those two sections together so that it can be my gnome hat. So I'm not being real particular here. I'm just going to glue it, and I'm going to come back and trim it up so it fits nice. But I just wanted to hot glue it down together so I didn't have to worry about anything to start with. And here I took all that time to get that hat glued down and closed all the way to the top, only to realize that I still had to put on my hanger, which meant I had to go back in and trim it, and laugh and trim it, and laugh and just get some tweezers and this poke that puppy through and say, there. I went ahead and put some hot glue on the end of it, pulled it right up, and just hot glued it to the inside of that hat. And then I just trimmed off the leftovers at the bottom and folded it on over and made sure it was all nice and even. And then it came apart and open again because I was pulling on it while it was still warm. And I just hot glued it right on down to his head. And it turned out, look how cute he turned out. I was really happy. And I took the hot glue, put it across the bridge of his nose, and get it on up there so you can't see it. Can't see the hot glue. I think he turned out adorable. And I didn't add anything fancy to this. I went in and trimmed him up a little bit, but I think he turned out super cute. And of course the mama cat's still going, groom, 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 groom. Let's go ahead and start on the snowman. So I did wrap this particular cone with some of the light colored twine. It's not white, it's more of a cream color. And I got little hats, little snowman hats from Temu. And they did say they were little, and they did have the sizes on there. And yes, they are little, but they fit the top of these trees perfect. And there's a little hole in the top where you can tell that's where they kind of poured it into the mold for the plastic. And my little Cricut tool went right through that hole so easy. So now what I have to do is kind of come on in, and I was just going to use some of that same white twine and thread it through the top of the hat. But it wasn't going to fit in there. That twine was a lot thicker. So I went ahead and I had a piece of that golden white twine on a needle, and I went ahead and used that to thread through the hat. And you can see I pulled it both through, and then I just wrapped it around and then fed it right back through the bottom. So now I put those little tweezers on there, those reverse tweezers, and that way I wouldn't pull the whole string right back out. And then I tied a knot in the bottom of it, hot glued, and then pushed that nice and tight, and added some hot glue to the inside of that hat, pulled that hanger down, and it fit nicely in there, and it's not going to go anywhere. So I have a little bit of white paint because I wanted to have some snow on this cream colored tree. So I just added a little bit on there. I'm just dusting it over, just dragging it with this dry brush, and I'm not loading it up real high. I'm not doing anything particular. I just wanted it to have a little bit of brushed snow across that creamy twine texture. So for this hanger, I'm going to go ahead and poke a hole right on in the top there. And I don't know why I would have done that, because the hat is going to glue right on the tip. Look how perfect it sits right on the top of that styrofoam form. Now I have a willow tree in the backyard, and with the winter just around the corner here, fall is about done. I was able just to go out and find a couple branches, and they're the perfect size for arms for this little guy. I took a toothpick and cut a little piece off the end of it for his nose, and I just used some orange paint here. It's called pumpkin orange, and I just painted the tip that I trimmed off of that toothpick, set it aside. I went ahead and used my pokey tool right there, and I am going to poke holes in the side and make sure it's got a nice opening to stick the stick into, because it will close up after, it'll try to start closing up right after I pull that little pokey tool right back out. So I try to wiggle it around, make the opening a little bit wider, because those sticks are, I don't want to break them trying to shove them in there. So I think that's, perfect. They sit right on in there. And look at these itty bitty scarves. Once again, Temu. And they are perfect for this. They fit nicely. They go great with those little hats. Just tie a little tie around it, and I used a little bit of hot glue to hold it right on down into place so that it's not going to try to basically slide up where the area is actually thinner in diameter. It will want to right up that way. I tried really hard to use my tweezers to pull it down into the hot glue, and it didn't work. I just had to use my fingers. A little hot glue on the front, hold that scarf right down into place. A little bit more to kind of pull it off to the side so it looks like he's been tied around the neck there. And now a hole to stick my carrot in. And I'm just going to add a tiny bit of hot glue onto the end of that and pop it right on in that hole. I was thinking about using beads for his eyes or his buttons. I went ahead and just got my paint pen and made sure it had some good paint flow. I didn't want to, hit it too hard. Look, it got all over my fingers. So I went ahead and just, wiped it off. I don't know what happened, but I just didn't want it to bleed into that twine. So I was going very slow as I did that. And then I just went ahead, put 2 on each side, and went ahead and just filled it in with the other 3 dots, making that a 5-dot mouth. And there you have it. Mr. Snowman's done. This one took me a little bit of time. I had to trim up some greenery, and I wanted to get some lights on there. Wanted to get the lights on there first and then put the greenery around the top of it. So I got these lights. It came in a pack of, I think, 20 of them. And I got them at Temu, and they were less than 50 cents a light pack. So that turned out really well. Actually, it was a lot less than that. Anyway, I think I got the pack for just about $3 for that many light packs. It was wonderful. And the battery pack is tiny. Do you see that thing? The wood round that it's actually on, that little, it's actually one of those little log pieces, is one of the 2-inch log pieces. So you can see how little that battery pack is. I did glue it down, but I glued it so I could open the back, or anybody could open the back and change the battery. And then I just wrapped it around a little bit, hot glued some of that down, and then just started, continued wrapping it around. Now, this is where I was like, I should have turned the lights on, because I don't know where the lights are actually landing when I'm wrapping this. And there was quite a bit of distance between lights. And this is a very small cone. It's 2 inches at the widest part on the bottom, 3 inches tall. So as I was wrapping it, I wasn't thinking too much about where the lights were landing. I thought it would be random enough that I wouldn't have any issues. And then I turned it on and I started looking, and they were all on one side. I only had a few on the other side. I'm like, oh, this is no good. So I'm like, let me turn it off and let me unwrap it. But that hot glue and that light strip were stuck. They were not coming off. So these have 3 settings. It has a really fast flash, and then it has a flash, and then it has solid. So what I tried to do was go ahead and maybe lift it and move it around to different areas with what I had left, not wrap it around the bottom. And I got a couple of them in different areas, but it did not quite turn out the way I wanted for that. But I was able to maneuver the last few pieces I had so they weren't all in that same area where they were landing. So that did work out okay. And that one light, it just landed right smack in the middle of all that, no matter where I put it. So I tried to kind of go back the other way, and it was landing on the other side right smack in the middle of it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how can I do this? So I just pulled it around and stuck it towards the bottom where there wasn't any lights and just left it in there. And I think that turned out fine. It was random enough for what it needed after I just finished maneuvering those last few bulbs around. So for this one, I took some different greenery and cut it up, and then I started just hot gluing it around the bottom. Now I didn't want to glue it on the lights at all. So what I would do is I would lay the glue down where the twine was wrapped and where the wire was wrapped, but not on the lights themselves. And then I would lay that down right in that hot glue and then hold it with that finger holder, that finger protector. Now the greenery that I'm using here was actually got at Walmart. I did have some cut that I got from Temu, but I really liked the one that I got from Walmart, and because it was more full, it had small pine cones on it, but they were too big for this tree. But I had some other tiny pine cones that I used. So I went ahead and I did plug in some of the Temu greenery in between. It just wasn't as full. So I would just use some of the smaller pieces and just poke them right on in there between the other pieces of the Walmart greenery. Then I came right back around with some more of that Walmart greenery and filled the top in, cutting some of the smaller pieces because it is towards the tip of the tree where the pieces are usually smaller anyway. And this is the last of that Walmart greenery, which was 98 cents. So still cheaper than the Dollar Tree. And honestly, the fullness of it, it's cheaper than the stuff I got on Temu. Even though the Temu one was a little less expensive because you got 5 of them for the $1.20 or $1.50 price, but they're so thin and they just don't have as much on them that it's just cheaper to use the one at Walmart to go ahead and cut off each one of those little pieces and fill it in. Now, like I said, I did use that Temu one to just poke into some of those areas that you could see actually the twine. I used the green twine on that one, so you could actually see the twine. I would use and just take one of those smaller pieces and just poke it right on in there. So I needed to actually put a holder on this, and I'm like, well, I guess I better get something on there before I totally wrap it up. So I took a piece of that twine, measured it out 10 inches, and then went ahead and put a little dab of hot glue right around the top of that tree tied it nice and snug, tied a little knot, but before I close the knot, put some more hot glue right in there and get it nice and snug so that it's not going to slip if it gets pulled or anything else. The one thing about these trees is, you know, because they're green and you have usually a green tree, they're not really going to pop out. That's why I added the lights. So for the star on the top, I have these little wooden snowflakes that are the same color as the pine cones I put on later. And I wanted to go ahead and kind of put that in there. But plugging in one of the little snowflake ends just didn't look quite right. So I did have a little bit left there of the greenery, and I wanted to go ahead and fill up around that snowflake first, get it on in there, and once that gets done and I feel like it's nice and full around that area, I'm going to come in with another snowflake and glue it to the top of the first snowflake that I glued in. So now that I feel like I've got enough of that fullness on that tree, I thought about maybe popping some white in there, and I just didn't like it. So I had a couple empty spots that I noticed as I was moving the tree around, and so I just clipped off a few more little pieces there and plugged them in, and looky there. You can see I put some pine cones on there. I don't know where that footage went, but there you have it. And here is the tree. I really think they turned out adorable. Guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me. Going on this crafty journey with you is just a blessing. Thank you. Let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite foam tree makeover. I hope that if you've liked this, you give me a thumbs up. It does help my algorithm get back on track so other people looking for this type of content can find me easily. If you're not subscribed, I hope you will consider doing so now by hitting that subscribe button. And if you want to know when my next video comes out, hit that bell notification and YouTube should notify you when my next video has been uploaded. As always, guys, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.